When you learn how to play disc golf for the first time, you probably were taught how to throw a backhand. Maybe along the lines, you eventually learned how to throw a forehand. You took that out to the course with you and threw them around. Probably got yourself in some weird situations, had some weird obstacles in front of you, got stuck in a bush, and you're like, wow, a backhand and a forehand thrown regularly isn't going to get me out of the situation. So you might try and figure out what throws you can do in those situations, and that is what I'm here to teach you today. Today I have 7 of my most used utility throws on the course. It's not going to be a comprehensive list. There's an endless amount of utility throws that you can do, but these are the ones that I could think of that I do the most. If they're not on this list, I'm probably not using them very often, if at all, on the course. So throw number 1 is a tomahawk. Tomahawk is one that I don't use very often. I often opt for different throws that get the same thing done as a tomahawk, but it can be useful in situations where, say you're stuck in a bush and just gotta punch out. A tomahawk is gonna be the throw for you and you have to go straight up. You can't like get in a weird situation where you're doing like a grenade or something weird. You just gotta throw right over your head and pitch out. You can also use it to get straight over things or up high where there's a gap, not in front of you, but above you. All right, so for a tomahawk, I typically pick a more overstable disc. Understable disc is gonna fly a little bit different, but I typically just use something overstable whenever I'm throwing them, just because I don't throw them very often. So I'll either do a Firebird for something that's trying to go far and over something. If I'm just punching out of a tough situation, I'll just use something like a pig. But the way you throw this is you just do a normal forehand grip. So just like that, and you're just gonna throw over your head, straight up and down. Now, really stable disc is gonna go pretty much just straight up and down, but if I pick something understable, like a Sidewinder, it's gonna pan out and flatten out on its backside towards the end of the flight. All right, number 2 is a forehand roller. I don't use this as often as I probably should, but a forehand roller can be useful in a lot of situations, particularly if you're like in a bush or under a tree and you need to get to a basket and the ground is open, but like anything above the ground isn't open, or maybe you have to get through a really tiny gap where you're in a bunch of trees and any backhand or forehand has to hit like a gap like this big. You can just throw a roller through that. So a roller can be really good for situations like that, or anything with a low ceiling where you're gonna have a hard time getting to the basket in the air. I don't use it super often because they can be a little finicky and I haven't practiced them as much, so I get kind of worried about throwing them, but they can be really useful, and there's a lot of highlights of people throwing forehand rollers on the Pro Tour. If you know how to use them right, they can be a fantastic tool. All right, there's really not that much to a forehand roller. You're just grabbing it with a forehand grip, and instead of throwing it like this, you're throwing it like this. So you're just throwing it on the ground so it rolls forward. To demonstrate the difference between 2 different forehand roller shots, I'm gonna use a pig and an aviar. You'll see how the pig is gonna go flat and then kind of cut to the right. The aviar is gonna turn over and go left. So the pig didn't really go the way I wanted to because of the wind, but you can see how the aviar cut left way earlier there. Number 3 is a grenade, and since I've learned how to do this one, I have used it quite a bit. The only reason it's low on my list is because I just don't get myself in situations very often where a grenade is usable. Like I said, if you're in a weird bush or something, a grenade isn't something you can like pull off and if you're in a tight space. You kind of have to be out in the open and trying to go over something where you have enough room to do a bit of a run up and to do a full reach back and extension of your arm. But if you do get yourself in a situation where you can't go through something and you can only go over it, or going around it is too difficult or puts you in a worse spot and going over it can get you to where you want to be, a grenade is a super good high percentage throw that you can do that will get you straight up and straight down and won't really put you anywhere else. You can also use this to get around gaps that you're trying to avoid. So Kevin Jones does this a lot off the tee, where he will, instead of throwing straight through a difficult gap, if the trees aren't that tall or there isn't a lot of foliage up in the air above him, he'll just throw a grenade over the top and have it crash down to where he wants it. And I've actually used that before on, in particular, hole 2 at Shadow Pines, but there are other situations where you can use that. I wouldn't recommend this too much because it's hard to get a grenade to go very far. It's more just, I gotta get 100 feet that way and I gotta go over something. If you wanna go anything further than like 150, maybe 200 feet, you really got to be able to throw that thing pretty hard. All right, there are 2 different ways to throw a grenade. Similar to a tomahawk, you're going to want to throw something overstable. So again, I'll use a Firebird. You could use something more understable. It's going to change how it flies. It'll pan out just like a tomahawk does. But there are 2 ways you can hold it. The first way is an upside down backhand grip. So your thumb is on the inside rim, and then your hands, instead of being on the rim, are going to be on the top of the disc. I don't like doing this way because it hurts my hand a little bit. The disc ripping out of your thumb when you throw it, I just find it to be kind of uncomfortable. I prefer the second grip, which is you take these two fingers, your pointer finger and your middle finger, and you put the disc in between it so that your pointer finger is on the inside of the disc so that it kind of sits in like that, okay? And then what you're gonna do, as you saw right there, is take your thumb and put it over that finger so it holds down everything in place. And it's gonna rip out of your hand like that. I find that to be a little bit more comfortable. The way you're gonna throw this is you're gonna reach straight down like you're throwing a Spikehizer and just rip straight up. And it'll go straight up and then straight down. Just a quick aside, if you're finding this video helpful, leave a comment, let me know. Drop a like and subscribe. I'm gonna be making a lot more videos like this going forward, so let me know what you wanna hear from me in the comments. All right, number 4 isn't really like a utility throw, but it's more like a utility thing that I do. I'll call it the falling putt. I don't see a ton of people do this, but I think it's something that can be pretty useful in certain situations, and I've used it before and made putts doing this where I don't think I would have made them otherwise. So what the falling putt is say you're under a tree or in a bush and you have a bunch of branches in front of you, so you gotta go like under and you're outside the circle. Well, you could just try and swing under and get there, but that might be kind of awkward and hard to do and hard to get that whole swing in. So what you should do instead is just fall forward. So get on your knees like you're in a kneeling stance and fall forward towards your chest and throw the putt while you're falling forward, and then land on your forearms. And you can get a little bit extra momentum going forward, and it makes it way easier to get that pop up while going under all of that to get up to the basket. Again, I said this only works outside the circle. If you do this inside the circle, it is 100% against the rules. The falling putt, I don't think really needs much explanation. You're just falling forward and throwing a putt, but typically I hold my putt with a fan grip, so one finger up in front. If you want to go under the bead or under the rim a little bit, you can. I typically kind of hold it up here and then a fan grip under, so these fingers are going to hold here, and then when you go forward, you're just going to extend your wrist as you're falling forward and use your forward momentum to get that acceleration of the disc forward. All right, number 5, it is tried and true. Everyone's probably done it at some point, and if you don't know how to throw a backhand with an overstable disc, you've probably done it inadvertently, and yes, it is the Spikehizer. The Spikehizer is very useful on a lot of holes in a lot of situations, so I use it pretty often. If you need to get up and over something and you want it to crash down straight on top of it, particularly if you want to go out and around something to the right, a backhand Spikehizer is exactly what you want to do. I would say hole 7 at Geneseo, if I have a clip of that, I'll show it, is a great example of this. You want to go all the way up and around, you want it to crash down, and you want it to just spike into the ground. So you either throw it into soft ground or pick a gummier disc like a Nate Sexton Firebird that will hit the ground and kind of absorb some of that and just stick right there. So a Spikehizer is a great throw for just getting up and over things when you have to go kind of around it. If you were sensing a theme with the straight up and down shots of using Firebirds, you are going to be correct with the Spikehizer also being, you want to use like a Firebird type disc for. This is the Draco, same as a Firebird basically. For a Spikehizer, it's going to be a similar motion to a grenade, except you're going to be going out a little bit more. Like I said, straight down and then up. So you want to reach back, but instead of reaching back here, you're going to reach back down and then go up in the air. Instead of going straight back and straight up, it's going to be more out, so you can get that hyzer motion. Just stuck right in the ground. Number 6, again, like the falling putt, isn't like a utility throw that you're throwing the disc that much different than you normally would, but it's kind of like a way of throwing it that is something you have to plan for, and I use it fairly often. I think it's a really good throw to do, and I think a lot of the pros do it, and it's something that is kind of tough to do, and it only works in certain situations, but it can be very useful, and that is the corner backhand skip shot. What you want to do is pick an overstable disc and throw it kind of at the ground with a lot of spin with a little bit of nose up. And what it's going to do, and the ground has to be hard, but it'll skip, flare up, and it'll go way further left than it would normally if you were to throw it in the air. So if you're going at something where you have to make almost a 90-degree turn to get to the basket, getting this flare skip by like purposefully throwing it kind of at the ground is a great way to kind of shape your shot so that you get like almost way more overstability than you normally would. Surprise, surprise, for the Skiphizer, we're going to be using a Firebird again. You can really use any overstable disc, but typically for this I'm using a Firebird. It's not a shot that you want a lot of distance for, so like a Halo Destroyer isn't going to do that much. And you want something with a narrow rim that can skip off the ground really well, so like a Toro or a Buzz OS or a Cayman or something just like that isn't really going to work as well. So you want something that's fast, the nice narrow rim, and really overstable. So Firebird usually is what does that for me. I will preface this with saying when you're doing a skip hyzer shot, make sure the ground is either hard or the grass is like low cut. So right now this grass is kind of cut pretty low. If it's long grass, it's just gonna dig right into the grass, or if it's muddy, it's just gonna stick into the mud. You want something you can bounce off of, you can skip off of. So the way you throw this is you're gonna throw it either flat or hyzer, depending on how much you want. You don't wanna go too hyzer because you don't want this part of the disc to stick into the ground and start rolling. So you typically wanna go flat or a little bit of hyzer so that when it comes in and that overstability kicks in, it's gonna hit, and you wanna throw a little bit nose up. It's gonna hit right here, and it's gonna skip and use that spin to get that left momentum. So you're just gonna throw a low, slightly nose up, backhand or forehand hyzer, sort of at the ground so that it hits a little bit nose up and skips. So you can see how it kind of glided across the ground, got a couple little hops, and it went way more left than it would have if I just threw it in the air. So if you had something like a low ceiling there, then that would be the perfect shot shape for that. Number 7, this one is one that I use all the time to get me out of sticky situations. I take it with me a little bit from when I played Ultimate, and I think more people should use it because it's very useful. It is the forehand anhyzer with an understable putter. So say you're in a position where you're kind of tucked into the left, maybe in a bush, and you gotta go around to the right to get to a basket, but you don't want to throw something overstable because you don't want to finish out to the right. You can't really throw a backhand because you don't have room. Well, pick an understable putter, just kind of flick it out to the right. It'll go and just finish left, and it won't finish right at all. This is great for when you want to shape a shot where you just want to go around. Say you're off on the side of the fairway, you're in a weird woods, and you just want to get back on the fairway, and you want to make sure it doesn't skip out or do anything. It just digs into the ground. This is great for that. I use this all the time getting out of weird situations. It's a very high percentage and very easy to pull off throw, and I think a lot of people could find it pretty useful. It's not something that you want to be doing all the time because it's like, if you're throwing this, you're in a tough situation, but it is one that you should have at your disposal because it can get you out of so many situations and is so easy to pull off. I want to first show you what this is going to look like with an overstable putter. I guess the Toro is a mid-range, but same thing. I'm going to throw this on that anhyzer angle and you're going to see how it reacts. Say I'm in a tight situation, I'm trying to throw this around. People will sometimes go for an overstable putter because they want it to pan out, but you can see how sometimes that might not be something that you want. Now, if I just wanted to go straight that way, sure, but if I wanted to get more left there, in order to get it to go more left, I'd have to really chop it over, and you're getting into like the territory where you're kind of almost going at a roller angle, and you got to hit the perfect sweet spot. With this, you can throw it pretty much flat, maybe a little bit of anhyzer, and it'll just glide and go way left, and it's going to be maybe better in situations where you only have to go like 100 feet, but you want to go out and then off to the left like that. So I'll show you right here. So it just finishes left the whole way. That is my 7 most used utility shots. I hope you found it helpful. Go out, try them on the course, let me know how they go. If I didn't cover something that you like to use pretty often, let me know in the comments. I know that lots of people like to do all sorts of fun utility shots, and there's no way I covered all of them. So please let me know what I missed, and let me know what kind of stuff that you like to do out there, because I might learn something new as well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.